Hey everybody, I am Tommy, and you are on the Lifeboat. Sandy Wendy, good to see you. Hey Jane Aldrich, glad that you're here. Lisa Trimble, welcome. Valerie, I am glad you're here, Valerie. Hope you were having a good morning. Mine's getting off to a better start. I woke up this morning with a very low level of pain. I would put it probably about a 2 or a 3. I can walk around at a 2 or a 3. It's not that big a deal. Krista Melinda, good to see you. Yeah, and I apologize, people. It's a bummer to not be consistent when you're talking about something that literally thrives on consistency. Susan Miller, glad you're here. There's Barbara. Hey, good to see you, A. It's a handsome pussycat there. It's frustrating because I know the importance of why your squirrel got a poofy tail. Are you mad at your sister? I know the importance of journaling, and I know the importance of consistency in journaling. Brock Bandy, good to see you. Arabian Bard, what's happening? Sorry about that. No, you're good. So the Arabian Bard is here. Arwa, glad you're here. And I know the importance of it, and it's a bummer to not be able to deliver that. The pain level just really has gotten to a point where there are days that simply put, I can't do it. So I'm holding out and trying to get as much done as I can with the pain level that I got. Today, though, I'm feeling good, which is logical. This isn't an infection, right? It's literally just the push, the tooth pushing its way a little bit further out of my jaw bone. It's lovely. It's lovely. That's your baby? Well, it is a very, very attractive baby. I love a cat. Cats make me happy. They're one of those things that truthfully and honestly bring such joy to my life. And as I'm saying that, my cat is getting into a good loaf position in the basket as we speak. There is a cat in a basket. You're having a chill day? Fantastic. We're going to get back to the business at hand today. And we're going to talk about journaling. This is... even through the pain and the things that are going on in my life, I am continuing to journal. It has become such an ingrained part of how I deal with everything that I deal with. It's almost fascinating once this really does become a part of you. Once this is how you do what you do. If you're not doing it, you'll go into a withdrawal of sorts. But I know that a lot of you, especially since we're not here and we're not talking about it every morning, I know a lot of you are back to that uncomfortable feeling of staring at a blank piece of paper. So today I want to hammer home why we do this, right? What is the purpose of this journaling? And it's that the answer to that is going to be slightly different for everybody, but it is, for all intent and purpose, the exact same thing. This is about exploration. It's about finding out who you are. We did a show where we talked about the fact that most of us wear masks. Most of us where sometimes you'll put a different mask on 5 different times over the course of a day. The mask that you show your family is going to be different than the mask that you show the people at work. It's going to be different than the mask you show the girl that you're taking on your first date. Tony Zuner, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. There's a different mask constantly. And if you do that for 40 years, right, or 35 years or whatever, you start to get to a point where you're not 100% sure who's the person behind the mask. Roberta, good to see you. Who is the person that is donning the mask in the first place? It's very easy to lose our identity, especially in the world that we live in today. You know, when back in the day, when I used to try to date, I used to do like a questionnaire with potential people that I was going to date. And it wasn't to see whether or not, I would date them, but it was to get an idea of who they were. And then some of them were really simple stuff. Do you prefer the beach or do you prefer the mountains? This kind of stuff. But what it did is it got me in, and the person that I was, my potential mate or date, depending on how you look at it, it got a conversation going that hopefully would explore a little bit about who this person was. And by the time I was done asking this person, a couple of hundred questions, I had a pretty good idea in my head who this individual was. Unfortunately, they're going to put their best foot forward, or they're going to answer those questions in a way that they think is going to paint them in a specific light. And often they're trying to be what you want them to be. That's a terrifying thing. But we do this. All of us do this, whether we realize it or not. Cindy G, good to see you. So how do you do the exploration thing? It's, first of all, one of the most important parts of journaling is doubling back and reading what you wrote. I talk about this all the time, but I talk about it in terms of when I know that I'm off track, I can go back and start looking at my journal entries to figure out exactly where I started to, to leave the beaten path, where I started to jump the rails. But just as importantly, every time you're done journaling, read what you just wrote. Don't finish your journal entry for the day, for the morning, or for the night. Don't just put the book away. Read what you just wrote. And oftentimes, you're going to read something that is either going to drive you to write more, or it's going to be that instant epiphany, that thing where you go, oh my goodness. Johnny talks about this a lot, and he probably will touch on it today, so I won't steal his thunder. But reading journals for him, I think the biggest shocker for him always comes from rereading the things that he wrote. It is super essential that you take the time to do that. There's only one reason for a first date. If you realize that it's simply to determine if there's a need for a second. It's funny. They'll tell you, here's a list of things that you should never ask anybody or talk about on a first date, right? Religion's probably not a good thing to talk about. Abortion, bad thing to talk about on a first date. Gun control. What political party did you vote for? All of these things. And the reason you wouldn't want to do it on a first date is because it's such a hot button issue that it's liable to what? Tell you who the person is, tell you whether or not this person is compatible, because in all honesty, unless you're, James Carville and his wife, if you are on opposite ends of the spectrum politically, or that blonde woman that helped Trump get elected the first time, Kellyanne Conway, her husband is a staunch Democrat. She is a ultra right-wing conservative. How the two of them remain married is absolutely fascinating to me. It really is. But these are questions that maybe you really should be asking yourself. Honestly, those are the hot button issues that often over a period of time, we change up because we don't want to stick out, or we don't want to go against the grain, or we don't want to be somebody that gets into someone else's space. You know what I mean? I read a journal entry from over 10 years ago, and it was a revelation. Wow, that is very cool. It really is. It's very cool. I love going back and reading stuff that I wrote at the very beginning of this journey. I love going back and reading not just the entries, but how the entries were there, because I journal so much differently today than I did when I first started. I didn't take to this like a fish to water. This was such an uncomfortable thing for me. Every single time I had to sit and write, the discomfort was overwhelming. And not just because journaling is hard, but because I struggle really hard with writing. And in the beginning, I was self-conscious about how I was writing. I was self-conscious writing journal entries that no one else was ever going to see. Tell me that's not just stupidity. But that fear of writing and that fear of being judged or being laughed at or any of the things that came along with that when I was a kid, that's hard to get rid of. And it was a beautiful thing that over time I just stopped caring, even slightly, because this became way more about exploration. I wanted to know who I was and why I did the things that I did. I was too smart to do the things I was doing. I'm sorry. Bank robbery is stupid. I was too smart an individual to be doing the unbelievably dumb things that I did on the regular. Journals are going to deliver to you answers that nothing else will. I promise. Even when you talk to a therapist, and I had a therapist for 7 years. This is somebody that I spent a lot of time talking to, but you still are going to knock the edges off. You're going to round out some corners. You don't want to be judged even by somebody whose job is to not judge you. It's really difficult because of how we're built. Ouch, you are so strong. My lower back is angry. And so I've used an extra painkiller, an SOS pain that I'm allowed to use and seldom use. Resting up a bit having to go out later this afternoon. Can we get some ones for Susan? Back pain is awful. Hate back pain. There's very, very little worse, honestly. I mean, toothaches suck, but back pain is just, I've lived with it for a long time. And when my back is not good, nothing is good. I just talked to my husband last night about journaling. I told him getting it out, whether by writing or speaking, releases so much weight. Well, you're absolutely right. And you know what? Men fight this way harder than women do. And I know this from experience, not just me, but a lot of other people that I've worked with. Hey, Rocket Queen, men fight this. They just, because it doesn't sound like something that's manly. Sitting and writing down all of your emotions and all of your feelings and things like that, that doesn't sound manly at all. And there was a guy a long time ago named Yohari, and he came up, I believe, with the concept of the boxes, and men are in a specific box, and we don't cry, and we're tough, and we defend people, and blah blah blah, right? And women have their box, and it's all set up, and children have the term thinking outside the box gets beat to death. It's one of those things that's been said so much that you just kind of want to vomit every time you hear it. Hello, Caroline. But there's such power in not caring. The reason that, in my opinion, the reason that journaling is so much more powerful than anything else. Hello, Tara Jackson. Is because you're not going to lie to yourself. And if you do, when you read that puppy back right after writing it, you're going to know you lied to yourself. And it's a dirty feeling. It's way different than lying to other people. Trust me, I've done a lot of both. But there's something very, very liberating about looking down at a piece of paper and knowing that you're going to let this tumble out and you don't give a snot, right? What it looks like. You don't care what it sounds like. You don't care if it's not manly or not ladylike or whatever, box you tend to have been shoved into. Wanted to say something positive today. I'm good. Wake up with a smile this morning. I love it. I really do. Sometimes you have to force yourself to say something positive. This is, we did a show about gratitude and gratitude journaling. Folks, the key to journaling is to have 400 tricks to get past staring at a blank piece of paper. And that self-discovery thing is massive. We talked about tricks for peeling the onion, going back and asking yourself questions from your past. Can I list out all the names of teachers that I've had? Can I remember the first kiss or the first embarrassment or the first time that you felt less than? The first time your parents did something that just didn't seem like something a loving parent would do. Starting to peel that onion and get to the heart of the matter of some of the things that have turned us into who we are, right? However, journaling, there's so much more to this than filling pages. There really is. There's so much more to it. We need to peel the masks off. And in the process of doing that, very often you'll figure out why you put the masks on in the first place. And I've shared some of the problems that I've had. I really jumped the rails and started to go full bore into drugs right around the time I realized that I needed special education. I was never put into special education for a whole host of reasons that weren't my own, but I was never put into special education and I needed it. I couldn't articulate that, by the way. I just knew that I felt stupid. I knew that I didn't learn the way other people learned. I was sitting in a classroom full of people that didn't seem to have a problem doing things that to me was, absolutely impossible. I find journaling hard, like a fish on a hot sidewalk. My past is gone. I can't change it. I change me now. I list my daily angst. That works. However, one of the problems with the past is, you say you can't change the past, but the past can change you. And it can keep you in places that you don't want to be. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is happening to you, Susan, but it sure as hell happened to me. And I for years, for decades, I told one therapist after another. I told one drug counselor after another. I told one sponsor after another. Every friend I had, I did drugs. Hey, whine a little bit more. I did drugs because I started experimenting And I loved the way that they felt. It was cool. You know, you could disconnect for a little while, or you could giggle. Depending on what the drug is, it delivers something different, right? Hey, Megan. But I just started to use, and then I did it so long that it became a habit, and then I couldn't quit. And I believed that. I believed that wholeheartedly. Through the process of exploration, I realized that the drugs took away emotions and feelings that I didn't know how to cope with. The chief among them was feeling stupid. That for me was a very difficult emotion to deal with. You know, feeling like I was less than the other people around me. And unfortunately, I had other parts of my brain that really worked good, right? They may have even worked better than most. So when you can communicate really well, but you can't get it down onto paper, you have people that say he's lazy, right? He just doesn't apply himself. And there was a point at which, instead of being called lazy, I started to be called a burnout. I started to be called, you know, one of the bad kids, a druggie, whatever. And that to me was such a better label than stupid. You know, I liked being thought of as the rebel that was just getting high. You know what I mean? The reason that my grades sucked is because I was one of those guys that hung out on the village green with the bad kids and smoked a bunch of weed. Stupid. I mean, looking back on it in hindsight, what a stupid thing to aspire to. But see, that didn't damage my fragile psyche. That didn't encroach on an ego that I didn't understand. If I was just a burnout, then there were so many movies and so many shows, and you know that I talk about this all the time, but even the heroes in every show we watch, they're kind of bad guys, aren't they? For real. Like, when is the hero of a movie not a little bit skewed? Think Fast and Furious. Think Die Hard, right? Any of these movies where, yeah, the hero's a hero, but he probably has a drinking problem. You know, he parties too much. He's always in trouble at work. He curses up a storm. He breaks all of the rules. That's kind of that's a recurring theme in American cinema. It's a recurring theme in American fiction. So being the rebel, you know, being the kid that, you know, I wore a leather jacket. I hung out with guys that were a little bit older than me, and they all smoked pot. And I liked that reputation. That spoke to me in a way that the dumb kid didn't. I hated having them sit around and talk about me while I was in the room, saying things like, well, he's just lazy. He's got all of the skill sitting there. He just won't apply himself. And when you're young and you're in that position, or when I was young and I was in that position, I could not say, you're wrong. I can't do this. You know, I simply can't do this. And part of it had to do with dyslexia. You know, there were numbers and letters. You know, when I was on paper and I was trying to write stuff, you know, I transposed things. I wrote certain, you know, letters backwards. And to me, you know, this isn't something that somebody in the 7th or 8th grade should be doing. You know, that's something that somebody who's in the 1st or 2nd grade might do, or in kindergarten. So once I had an out, once you gave me that out, I was jumping on that. I was going to be my new identity, and I could live with that. It was great. And then I took that, and I had the athletic part of my life, which always came fairly easy to me. So during football season, there was a whole other identity, right? And then during ski season, there was a whole other identity. But the drugs would weave their way through all of them. Even while I was playing football, we were getting high before we went, right? It is absolutely dyslexia, Sandy Whitney. One of the problems with my learning disability was dyslexia. To be sure it was. The past most certainly changes you, without a doubt. Losing my son 7 years ago has changed who I am. There's no two ways about it. The past will always change who you are. And that's not always a bad thing. And it is always, in most cases, it's also something that you can't do anything about. You know, those kind of events, like losing a family member, there's nothing you're going to do to fix that. That's the 5%. The problem becomes if you have a lie in your past, right? My lie from the past was I got high because it felt good. And then I got addicted to it because I had done it for so long. There was nothing I was hiding from. There was nothing that, you know, because when you go into therapy, they say to you, Most people don't become drug addicts because they like getting high. They may think that that's the case, but if you start peeling the onion and you start really going back and looking at when you started to get high, what was the driving force? What was the motivation behind you doing drugs every day? It isn't going to be just, wow, that felt good. I promise. And the reason for that is because addiction, right, is continuing to do a chemical or a habit or in the face of all kinds of reasons to stop. If you drink, you start to black out. That should scare the hell out of you. If you're missing large chunks of a night and you don't know what you did, for people that don't have addiction as a disease, that's usually enough to scare the crap out of them, and they start pumping the brakes fast, right? Fast. Worse for me is restarting things. If I put it down still in my routine, which so helps. You know what? Yeah, the routine thing, I'm going to hammer on that here in a little bit, because the routine part of what we do is massive. But we live in the present moment. We have the past, which we can't do anything about, right? Well, you can't change it. There's a lot you can do about it. There's an absolute mountain that you can do about it. You just can't change it. You have to learn to accept it. And very often, we don't accept our past. So it encroaches on the present moment. And the present moment is where you're going to be happy or you're going to be miserable. That's in present time. It's also where you're going to plan for your future. And if you're going to be happy in tomorrow's present day, it's going to be because of the things that you plan for and get ready for in the future. Make sense? So if you've got something from your past that every single day forces you to wear a different mask or forces you to be somebody you're not, then you damn well better fix that. Or you might wind up 3 decades later going, what just happened? Right? I promise you, the number of people who are sitting in prison because of things that they're running from that happened 25 years ago. Ever wonder why child molesters are so wildly abused by inmates in prison? Because the number of guys that are sitting in there who were molested is incredible. That's one of those things that when it happens to men, very often leads them into directions of doing a ton of drugs, doing things to try to deal with their past. And that, causes really stupid decisions to be made in the present. You have to get good at dealing with the past. And it's one of the most difficult things you're ever going to do. That's exploration, people. It's finding out who you are and where you took a left-hand turn when you damn well should have taken a right. All of the trauma in my past, which is a lot, made me who I am today. So if I could go through it again, I'm stronger, more focused, and driven. Yeah, I love that. Lisa Trimble says, to start journaling again, it will be once a day, more if needed. Baby steps. We'll use your questions. We'll have to destroy monthly for fear someone will read it. I love the fact that is a fear of yours and you're going to do it anyway. This is going to piss off all kinds of people, but I'm going to say it because it's just the truth. It's 2025. And if you say, I'm not going to journal because I'm afraid that someone's going to read it, there are a million ways that you can take action to make sure that no one is going to read it. We have military encryption on different kinds of programs. There are things that you can light on fire if you really had to, destroy it, do whatever you have to do. But if the answer is, somebody read a journal of mine a long time ago, so I will never journal again, you just don't want to journal. And I'm not trying to bust anybody's chops or be a jerk, but I used those kind of excuses my whole life to avoid things where, truth be told, in the day and age that we live in, there's a way around any one of those problems. You can buy a $150 safe at Home Depot, then no one's getting it. I promise. That doesn't have to be a big safe. You buy one at Home Depot nobody is going to get into that safe if they don't have a 5-digit combination or, whatever the case may be. But I was the Duke of excuse. Talk about this all the time. My daughter, when my daughter was pulled from my life, that was my favorite excuse. Nobody could ever argue with me about that one. Any other excuse, if I said, I got the pain, I have such physical pain, they'd go, well, I can get you in to see a specialist. Man, shut up. I want to keep doing dope. Leave me alone. When it got to, they stole my daughter from me, that was the end of any discussion with somebody. Why are you doing this? Because they stole my daughter from me. I'm not allowed to see her. I'm not allowed to talk to her. Well, that shut everybody up. It became my favorite excuse. By the way, it was true. It was one of the most important reasons for me doing dope every day. But I loved having that excuse. I didn't love that they took her from me. But having dealt now with literally thousands of people who have been addicted to opioids, I've never met one that didn't have pain. Not one. Every single one I've met has a very serious problem with pain. Now, is that pain real or is it psychosomatic? I mean, either way, it feels the same. I can't answer those questions. The only people that can answer those questions are the people that are actually suffering with that pain. But you could have hooked me up to a polygraph test a decade ago and said to me, what is your pain level at 24/7? And I would have said, I walk around at about an 8 all the time, 365 days a year. Here's where the pain is. And I could list off the parts of my body. And you know what? No, it wasn't true. I wasn't aware of the fact that it wasn't true, right? Right hand to God, I believed it. But what happens is your body is going to push the right buttons to get you to go back and do the dope. That's your brain wants that to happen. Dennis N., good to see you. You know what, A? Some really fantastic comments. I love it when people are grooving. You know what I mean? When these things start to click and they start to make sense, it's fantastic to watch. And again, I fought this harder than any of you did. I promise you, I fought this harder than anybody ever fought journaling. It's such it's a mind bender to me in a lot of ways, just how important it is in my life, because I was such a jerk off when it came to fighting anybody that wanted me to write anything down. That to me, you know how there are people who can become embarrassed because somebody has read their journals, or people could be afraid because someone. I felt so mentally handicapped when I read things I had written. When I look at what I'm capable of putting on paper, I felt handicapped wildly. I was in a room of 200 people. Without a doubt, I knew 100% I was the worst writer in that room. The ability to get my thoughts onto paper, 199 people in that room were better at it than I was. And I don't like being second place, much less 200th. So, and I did this in a lot of things in life, and I think a lot of people do. If I can't be good at it, I'm just not going to do it, right? If I can't develop this into an actual skill, well, I'm done. I'll just tap out and not do it. And this is an epiphany that I had while journaling. That moment of, well, if I can't do it, I just won't do it. I don't mean I'm just not going to write. I'm not going to participate. School's over. I'm not doing it. I'll do just enough so that I can graduate, but I'm not going to play that game. I don't want to feel dumb. I'd rather have the whole world call me a druggie. That was a much better title for me. Yes, the fight is long and I'm tired, but it's been worth it. The better I get, the more I realize how bad things can be. Wow. Yeah, that's a hell of a statement. It really is. The better I get, the more I realize how bad things can be. It's another thing that is so important to me in my recovery, in my life, right? My walk, whatever you want to call it. The farther away I get from dope sick, the less I remember it. Now, I work with a lot of people. Today, I am going to to the men's shelter here, the men's rehabilitation center and shelter for guys that are addicted to heroin. And we're going to be going to work with them one-on-one today. Get picked up at about 10:30. Seeing that in action absolutely makes you remember where you are. But the farther you get away from any kinds of trauma, the easier it is to kind of forget about it or to minimize it. And the problem with that is, if you forget how bad dope sick was, or you forget how bad the morning after drinking was, or the having to go to court for DWIs, all of the negative stuff falls away. The positive stuff doesn't. Our memories of our chemicals, there are positives from it. People, I hear people say all the time, my best day drugging was not as good as my worst day sober. I have no idea what the hell that means. Honest to God in heaven. My best days drugging were fantastic. I didn't even realize there was a downside to that chemical, right? When I first started, I thought this is the answer to every single thing in life. I had confidence, right? It took away all the fear. Everything just felt perfect. You just don't know that you have to give up your soul in order to have that. But those early days, no, those were pretty fantastic. And the problem is that as you start to slip off the memories of the crap, the memories of the good times, or you laughing with some friends, or that time you went out to the movie and you were all getting high in the parking lot before you went in there, those memories start to work their way back in. And that's when you're in danger, right? That's when you're at your most dangerous and most vulnerable place as somebody in recovery. Sometimes you just want to forget, says Caroline. Absolutely. I mean, one of the other conundrums is that for most of us, if you became addicted to a substance, it was to help you forget. It was to help take away. It was to help forget. And if you want to live a life that is going to be fulfilling, if you want to live your best life, you're going to have to remember. You're going to have to come to grips and remember some of the worst things that ever happened. That's the exploration, and that's the discovery. And it sucks. To be sure, it sucks. But the important thing is this, that as you start to peel this onion and you really start getting down, hello, Sandra, as you really start peeling that onion and getting in there deep, you know what you end up getting to? You end up getting to the person that did this one and pulled that mask on the first time. It may sound really silly, but for a lot of people, you have no idea who you are. For real. The purpose of journaling, this exploration, is to find out who you are, to find out who you were before you decided to cash in by getting loaded, right? By snorting this or shooting that. Or it doesn't have anything to do with drugs. Maybe it was that time that you realized that, you know something? When I really start getting angry or I really start getting hurt, I can crush a bag of Doritos. And I'm not being funny in any way, shape, or form. You can release chemicals into your body so many different ways. And there are people for whom the payout comes from eating a pizza, right? Or a pint of ice cream. It's insidious, right? Especially when you consider that there are companies out there that are engineering the product to do just that. That's terrifying, but it's an absolute fact. And that is one of the biggest addictions on planet Earth, is the addiction to food, right? And it's insidious because you're not going to have a very successful life if you are not eating. It's kind of important, right? You're not going to survive without it. But if it is also the bane of your existence, that becomes a real issue. And I promise you, if it is an overeating thing, right, then it's an issue that you're going to have to figure out at what point you started that. Because if you do, you're going to be shocked how easy dieting becomes. For the people that say, I just can't seem to diet, you won't have to diet. I promise. If you can get down to the core issue, when you start to feel that need to go and, eat a supersized meal at a fast food place or crush a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, you're going to reach for a pencil or a pen, and you're going to start putting pencil and pen to paper. And the incredible thing is you're going to get the exact same relief that you would have gotten from the 600 calories you were about to pump into your body, or the hour and a half you spend on this thing, scrolling and hitting like or not hitting like. The addictions to chemicals jump off the page. And the reason they do is because the symptoms are just hideous. It's very easy when we think addiction. The first thing we do is we think cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, right? Like that's the first thing you think of are people who are addicted to pills or people who are addicted to this chemical or that chemical, because we're losing 300 people a day. In the United States, it's the #1 cause of death. So obviously when someone says addiction, the first thing you think of is drugs and heavy drugs. But the truth is there are so many people addicted to video games that in some of the more progressive countries, they have acknowledged this. South Korea is listing addiction to video games in the top 3 threats to their nation. I need an Alice in Wonderland. had so many of them, but you're right, Roberta. I do. I kind of rotate through. Snoopy gets a lot of airtime too, but I could definitely put a Cheshire Cat on there and feel pretty good about it. Hey, what a kind thing to say. A says, I absolutely love listening to you and your brother speak. So much passion and conviction. You guys inspire me with every single video. What a kind thing to say. I really appreciate that. You guys inspire me. And I know you guys inspire my brother. The reason that we come back and do this every day is because this is our drug of choice. You know, when you watch a transformation happen in the life of somebody else who starts picking up a pen and journaling after saying, you know, it's just not something I could ever do, it's way more of a payout than it is when it happens for you. It just is. You know, Q put a hell of a lot of effort into me, but I know that dude got more high watching me go from the piece of shit I was into a person that was going to come out here and try to do this. You know, that's a buzz. And he continues to get that buzz because I email the guy almost daily and we talk on the phone about as often as we can get away with it. You know, it's a little bit more restricted in prison, but this is really a buzz, right? We're going to this, we're going today to speak to heroin addicts. If you're a junkie, that's a risk. Going and looking at people, that's a trigger, right? These guys are going to have track marks. These guys are going to be telling stories of shooting dope, and they're not going to be talking about when they were kids. They're going to be telling stories of shooting dope 4 days ago. That's always a risk, but the payout is insane. It's insane. There's just nothing quite like it. So, but I appreciate the kind words. Rocket Queen says, then if you get arrested, you get a record, and then you have issues getting jobs. Oh, and so much other fun stuff comes from that. Really, honestly. And so many people, right, who get off the track. One of the horrible things about, you know, I say the symptoms of drugs are so much uglier than the symptoms of, say, video game addiction. No one's getting arrested, right, for doing too many video games. But if they catch you with your drug of choice, you're getting arrested and you're going to get a record. Just, you know, that's the way it goes. Journaling helped me get a handle on my anxiety about leaving the house on Tuesday and going to Traverse City. Barbara, awesome. But tell me, when you got back, like you got out and that was a mountain, right? And once that's, you know, you bet and you climbed that mountain and you came back, don't you just want to go, yes, I did that, right? Those things start to become more often, right? More reliable. And you start getting those payoffs like this, right? Like this, one right after the other. It's, we call it programming, right? Some people call it routine, whatever, but it's the opportunity to set a goal, achieve the goal, write down how it felt. Seems pretty simple, right? You set a goal, you do what's necessary to achieve the goal, and then you write down. And if you don't write down, you miss the money shot. I mean, honestly, what we want to make sure more than anything on earth is that we're not putting new crap in the closet. We know that the past can absolutely affect how happy we are in the present moment. Well, what if you're doing the same crap in the present moment that you were doing a decade or two ago? What if you're still shoving stuff into the closet and throwing the door shut? Well, it's kind of like swimming upstream, right? It's kind of like trying to drain the ocean with a shot glass. So the first thing to do is get a tourniquet on this and stop the bleeding. And the way you do that is you write down the things that happened to you during the day, especially the ones that really left you chapped, right? The stuff that really made you upset, or the stuff that made you really, really happy. But anything that really tripped that emotional response, if you don't work it out in your brain, if you don't give your brain a chance to work through it while you're asleep, it's going to go in a closet. And you're going to slam that door shut. And eventually, I promise you, that closet door will come flying off of the hinges. And you feel like you're having a mental breakdown. You feel like your whole life shatters. And I know a lot of us have been there. I was fearless before I lost my vision. Now, not so much. But I felt better about even getting in the truck to go. Barbara, I'm proud of you. I really am. How about some threes up there? We're going to some threes from Barbara. That's good stuff. Susan says, Tommy, do they have shelters for women there too? Or is it more a guy thing? Much love to you and Johnny. There are absolutely programs here for women. I just don't work at any of them. It's just, I find that it's a lot safer all the way around for all parties if I just work with, you know, if the men work with men and the women work with women. I just think, especially early on in addiction, one of the problems is that, let's take heroin, since this happens to be the substance that we're going to be talking about today. You go walking into a place where you've got 25 or 35 people that have just put down the needle, right? And they've been on it for 10 or 15 years. They have turned off their emotions for decades. Turn them off. When they come back online, they are ridiculous. They're not under control. If you have not allowed your emotions to come to the surface for decades, you're going to have to relearn all of those emotions. And if you're journaling and you're doing all that, it's a slightly easier process. But this is why you'll hear people say, don't meet someone at an NA meeting and fall in love, right? That's a bad idea. And the reason it's a bad idea is you're just learning emotions again. Maybe don't start with love, you know? Maybe put that one on the back burner for a while. And you know what? People will say to me, I met my significant other in NA and we've been married 35 years. Fantastic. For every story like that, there's 100,000 stories of people that got together, and it's trauma bonding. It's, you know, people who's this just raw into the surface and they haven't really felt anything in so long that now that they're feeling something, they get into a lot of relationships that aren't the greatest of ideas. And I think, you know, doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you anything, but it's not a great idea, you know? So for me, I'm a lot more comfortable just working with the dudes. I think it's, I understand their plight a little bit better, but yeah, it's a payout. You know, I know that between me and my brother, you couldn't find two guys more excited about going to Disney World than we are excited about going to meet these guys. This is, I feel like we've been waiting a year, which is really funny because I think the first time we brought it up was about 3 weeks ago, but it feels like we've been waiting a really, really long time for this. So we're pretty excited about it. But the one of the things that I'm going to be telling these cats today is that having not only kicked heroin successfully, my brother's done the same, but the number of people that I have helped kick heroin, right? The number of people that you all have helped kick heroin. I feel like there's some insight here that have come through blood, sweat, and tears. And I've gotten to the point, honestly, where if a person says to me, you know what, you know, I'll do everything you say except the journaling part. My response usually to them is, you might make it. You know, it's a possibility. There is a chance that you will make it. You will never be what you were supposed to be. You're never going to get to where you were designed to be. What your full potential is as somebody in recovery, you're not going to get there without a journal. That's it. And you know what? I'm not charging you. I'm not telling you it's going to be $150 for this journal that you got to get from me. There's no payout for me saying this, other than the fact that it is a stone cold fact. You know what I mean? I promise. And I fought it harder than any of the guys that I meet today are going to fight it. Now, what if you can't write? That's a reality. And it's going to probably be more of a chance of reality today than it's going to be in some of the other places I will go and speak because of where I'm doing this. I'm doing this in a part of, there are parts of this country that look very much like India, you know, where the houses are sort of ramshackled and put together with things that people can find on the streets, you know, cardboard, you know, corrugated siding, and just sort of whatever they can grab. And for a lot of those people, they didn't have access to the kinds of education necessary to be able to read and write. You can journal without being able to read and write. You absolutely can. You know, these things, I talk into my phone. You can ask my brother. I do it constantly. I'll be somewhere and something will hit me, or something will bring enough emotion out of me that I really would rather not put it away till later and then journal about it at night. If I see something that just tears my heart out and I have the ability to just hit the record function on my phone and talk into it, I can talk into it. I can then listen back to what I said afterwards. It's like just the exact same thing as journaling. For me personally, because of the fact that the inability to write was one of the things that drove me to be a drug addict in the first place, writing it is such a symbolic thing for me, you know, and it's ugly. If you ever saw the writing, I mean, I have not gotten good at, I've just accepted that I'm very different and it doesn't bother me anymore. You know, I would say if the words got more than a couple of syllables, I probably misspelled it. I don't care anymore. And that's one of the most liberating things in the whole world. Is there a way you could do a wish list on Amazon for journaling supplies for the rehab center? You know what? There is, you can do something like that. You're absolutely, Barbara, I think we can do something like that. And the best part of that is, you know, as opposed to, because you know how the troll population is, but it would just be an opportunity for people to actually get what these people need as opposed to money or anything else. And we talked about this. We're going to get there and find out exactly where the needs are. And then we will probably put something like that together, because I think that's a beautiful idea. Sorry, have to shower and go help a friend. Much loved ones to you and your tooth, Tommy, and your visit with Johnny. Ones for everyone who needs it. Later. Susan, have a great day. And thank you for spending your morning with us. I think that's awesome. Johnny says, I've journaled with a pen and paper. It seems so much more effective to me with a pen and paper. Yeah, I mean, it is to me too. However, I know it sounds a hell of a lot better when I do it like this. When I do it speaking, boy, it sounds a lot better. But for me, the act of writing forces me to engage a part of my brain that speaking does not, right? I have to send those messages down to my hand, right? There's a different part of my brain that begins to click. And it is the executive function. It's sort of the higher level. And the reason that that's beautiful is I have a very difficult time having my emotions running at the exact same time. So when I am pissed and I sit down and start writing, 4 sentences in, and the piss starts to fail away. You know, I just can't stay angry because the emotions just start to tamper down as the logic part of my brain starts to ramp up. And it's really gotten to a point where that's how I think about it, right? I got to turn off the emotions and turn on my logic, because they're not going to, they don't run at the same time on this broken toy. I know that there are people that probably can do that all day. I can't. So there's something beautiful in the knowledge that I can turn off that jackwagon part of my brain, right, that wants to throw things and act like he's 6. Guess where I found that epiphany? On the pages of my journal. Almost every great thing that has occurred to me about who I am, what I am, and how I became what I am happened through journaling. It's just that simple. Archie's mom says journaling was hard at first, but wow, it definitely has helped me a lot. Yeah, right? And I fought this. I'm sorry I had to take a call. I remembered and taught the 5 cents trick to help the person for anxiety too. You know what? There are so many tricks. There really are. And all of them are fantastic. I am a huge fan of changing what you're looking at, what you're smelling, what you're hearing. If you're really in a bad spot, get the hell out of the room you're in. And ideally go outside, get bombarded where all of your senses just start getting tagged. You know, that to me has always really done wonders. And again, learn that on the pages of the journal, because I was trapped in a place where I could not go outside. I couldn't just stop. Your tooth should have a name, maybe after someone or something you never want to deal with again. So when it's gone, it's gone. I may have already named it, but I don't think I'll share it with the world. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I basically hate computers and they hate me, says Caroline. What do you think, Johnny? I'm not a fan of technology. across the board. No, I'm not. I wish that we had a cord on the phone. The phone was plugged into the wall. You know, a good 25-foot cord like I had in high school, so I could almost wander around the entire house, and I could lay on the ground, put my feet on the wall, and just sort of twirl the thing in my. You fixed the TV. I did fix the TV. I did. I managed to program the television set in a different language here. But I'll be really honest. It was kind of like picking the Powerball numbers. You know what I mean? Like it might happen, but the odds of it happening twice aren't too good. That's kind of how I view that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Grounding. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and the 1 thing you can taste. It never fails. Honest to God, it's fantastic. The grounding exercises are like nothing in the world. They really are fantastic and thought up by people considerably smarter than your host. But I will happily say that Valerie says, I missed my landline. Me too. I have not come up with, I mean, everything that we talk about, I got somewhere else. I'm not a guy that designs any of this stuff. I just was so messed up that I spent a lot of time trying to take anything I could that was going to help me become a human, because I promise you I was not there. For a long time, that's not how I lived. I've been leaving myself voice notes like journals too. Woohoo! Wow, do I ramble on listening back. It's like a diary of a crazy lady, but quite insightful. Yeah, I try to cap them at 10 minutes because I will absolutely, I mean, I can go with when I'm really on one. It's very easy for me to get 40 pages worth of journaling done in about 4 minutes of a voice message, because I talk really quickly. I'm not trying to have a conversation. I'm not trying to be a speaker. I'm just getting it out. You know what I mean? And it is rolling. And in the beginning, I used to go back and try to write it all into the journal. To be really honest, I don't do that much these days because they're never short. They're always really long, because if I'm picking this thing up, I'm not in the house. I'm nowhere near my journal. It's usually because I'm outside, and it takes something of, you know, serious. It has to be something that really trips an emotion for me, you know, and yeah, I can get wildly out of control speaking journal stuff versus writing it. Chris and Melinda says, if you have mints or something for the taste part. Yeah, you know what, though? If you're outside, what's that? Peppers. Yeah, peppers, says Johnny Scoville. Yeah, that way, you know, you don't just get to taste it. You could hurt yourself. Sicko. He's not, you know that, right? I mean, he's a good dude, but he's not quite right. So to recap, honestly, there are people all the time that say to me, why, you know, I can do this without journaling. Why is it so important? Because you don't have a clue who you are. How's that? I promise. You don't have a clue who you are. Unfortunately, we start at pre-puberty in trying to design who we think the world will like more than who we really are. Did you catch that? Right around the time you are 12 or 13 years old, in my humble opinion, you begin to shape a character that you're going to play for the rest of your life. And that character, you want to be a little bit cooler or a little bit kinder or a little bit, but it's not the genuine you. And we all do it. Everybody to some degree does it. And different people call it different things, right? It's the masks that you put on, right? It's the costume that you put on, whatever, however this clicks in your mind. But make no mistake, we'll use me as an example again. The burnout was so much better a character to play than the stupid kid. And then there was a whole bunch of stuff that went along with that, right? There was so much that went along with being the burnout, because those kids, well, they got in fights too. And, you know, it wasn't just pot, right? These guys also got together and drank. So now I'm a dude that's drinking, smoking pot, getting into fights, because I think that's a better image in my head than the image of the stupid kid that needs special education. It sounds insane, doesn't it? But I promise, to some degree, you've done the same thing. I'm great to be here because my problems are so much like they're bigger and more crazy. They're over the top, so they make for great examples. But to some degree or another, everybody has done it. I have the word tattooed. Crazy is a wonderful thing, isn't it? It means different than normal. Yeah. I don't mind the crazy word. I definitely I have come to grips with exactly who I am, and that's one of the most liberating things in the world. And it may sound bizarre, but I had to find out who that person was on the pages of a 98-cent composition notebook. You know, if you start making those changes, hello, court reporter. If you start making those changes when you're 12 or 13, and you decide to start trying to work on yourself to fix yourself at 44 or 45, it gets pretty rugged to figure out exactly where you were when you started BSing who you were. You know, what was I when this all started? Exploration. The purpose of this journal is to figure out who the hell you are. And the great thing is, I've never had anybody peel that onion, find out who they were, and thought, no, I do like the fake version of me better. I've never seen it happen. See, what's sad is when we're 12 and 13 years old, or 8 and 9 years old, or whatever the case may be, we don't have enough brain pan just yet to realize that we're probably pretty damn good the way we are. You know, got a couple of things we could work on. I mean, I could have worked on the education part of me, as opposed to trying to become, you know, some character that I thought chicks would think was cooler than the stupid guy. But that's where you're going to figure this stuff out, is on the pages of that journal. It's not just a clever thing to say. It's not trite. It's a stone cold fact. And I've watched it happen to so many people. And I promise you, it makes the present moment so much more enjoyable when you don't have to think about or pretend to be, or when you can just sort of let it all go. Well, this is me. Like me or don't, right? Cry on film, right? Dance like Elaine from Seinfeld, and stop giving a crap. Say again? Let's not get crazy. No, but you know what? How about this? The Lifeboat's been open about 4 years, right? The Love Boat now. It's been open about 4 years. And I'm talking about being genuine and being the person that you are, and not wearing those masks, and I'm saying grape and unalive and all of these things that I don't feel comfortable saying. To me, it feels like I'm selling out. How am I still doing that? Well, again, I'm journaling one day and I'm like, of all of them, grape was the one that got me. I could say unalive, you know what I mean? Suicide, you know, it has a sting. I like the fact that it has a sting. It should. Unaliving almost sounds pleasant. Suicide's ugly. But grape, I love grapes. Freaking love them. My favorite fruits. You start thinking to yourself, if there's a person that was game raped, I don't think they want to hear grape. You know? But that epiphany came while writing in a journal. One of the reasons that I'm starting to hate what I'm doing on this stupid channel, and that's, I don't mean today, but that was because you start feeling dirty. You start feeling like, I'll change my vocabulary for the big red button. For these people that I promise you wouldn't have me over for dinner, and I don't think I'd want to break bread with them anyway. The algorithm that nobody can see, or nobody has quite figured out how to run, so they're not going to push my video, or they're not going to pay me. You know what? I'd rather feel good. Legit. It's almost a kind of mask, isn't it? It's like trying to fit in. Everyone else says it, right? We're all saying grape. We're all saying, you know, all of these things, so that maybe we'll get pushed a little bit further out. Maybe we'll be a little bit more popular. Now, for the Love Boat, being more popular is not bad. It means more people are going to hear the message, and I believe in this message, big time. But not enough to change my speech. All of those epiphanies, I don't find them any other place. And I'm glad I don't. For real. Discovery should happen in the pages of that journal. That way it's just me. There's nobody else. It's just me in that journal. Give it a try. I promise you'll thank me later. You might get angry along the way and you're going to cry and scream and do all kinds of other things. But that's what happens when you shit can your emotions for decades. Start unpeeling that onion and you'll be really surprised at what a beautiful person you are when all of that crap gets stripped off the outside. I promise you'll be very happy. One of the biggest life lessons I learned was that we love others because of their quirks and not in spite of them. I just need to apply that to myself. Well, isn't that a pisser, right? Truthfully, is that not just, yeah, I love her, with all of the flaws. I love her, right? But we just can't believe that someone could possibly love us with all of ours. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? That age, trying to figure out who you are too. I never stopped trying to figure out what I wanted to be growing up, even at 50 plus. Not sure when I get there, I will figure it out, I guess. You know what? I don't know that I'll ever get. Hey, AVAC, good to see you. Glad that you caught it live. I love that. Yeah. This was a good one, folks. This was a fun one. I mean it. I'm glad that I got through this. It's been a while since I could get through a full 1 hour session with my tooth. But this is the last Friday that tooth will ever be in, or Thursday rather, that tooth will ever be in my head, which is a good thing. On Monday it goes. So hopefully tonight I will feel the same way that I do right now, and we'll be doing a whole other show, right? Yes, A says not allowed to say anything anymore. Not on the big red button. And you know what? It's liberating not giving a crap. I have faith that if they demonetize every single video that I do, but they do it because I'm being truthful and honest to who I am and not being a sellout, the universe will provide, right? God will take care of it. I have faith. Between now and the next time I see all of you, which I hope will be this evening, put a little love in your heart and put some pen to paper. Honestly, those epiphanies, they're not going to come from any other place. Now, do yourself a favor, because very often I will say, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about this morning. And then Johnny feeds off of it, and the two of us start firing stuff back and forth. May I make a suggestion? Go check out Chase the Heat South America. I'd be willing to bet you almost any amount of money that this message probably dovetails beautifully into his. Mm-hmm. All right. Between now and the next time I see you, put a little love in your heart. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.